It's great to meet everyone today. My sincere apologies. I intended to be here a tad earlier, but as fellow folks that run businesses, and know how that goes, staff changes happen really quickly sometimes. So we had to put out a couple of flyers this morning. But I'm so glad to be here with you all to talk about stuff that I really like and stuff that I care about and that I'm excited about, which is helping folks like you figure out how to turn those nice nest eggs, those savings you put together, those ideas, and that network into a business you can put on the ground and how you can raise money to get there. So really excited to be here. Looking forward to fielding everyone's questions. I've got a little one slide that you will be forced to sit through, during this, but we'll mostly want to keep it fun, interactive, and I mostly want to hear from you all. To kind of get started, really briefly, my name is Sean Tate. I'm the owner of Tate Legal. We focus on three major practice areas, which are real estate, corporate law, and capital formation, which as you can hear, kind of crosses all three of those cross the deals that you guys are discussing, here today. We're strictly focused on transactions. We're here for deal makers. We're not litigators. So you're going to see us more often in the boardroom than a courtroom. So we're a really good fit for folks who are out doing, interesting deals in the M&A space in terms of buying and selling businesses, and in the real estate space in terms of buying and selling real estate. I think the focus today is particularly on raising capital. But since I didn't, get to hear the first part of the meeting, Wes, can you just real quickly encapsulate what the focus is today in terms of what folks want to talk about?
Yeah, so we're still building the group of Military Patriots Investment Group, and we're wanting to really empower the group on how we can tap into each other's resource. So it's not just who we know, it's who we know knows, and really tapping into going into the syndication route, which is really about using other people's money as well, not just other people's information. But there are some legalities that come to that. There's some compliance that comes to that. And that's when I, was kind of saying, kind of other vendors in the group that want to, talk about and share their services with everyone else. That's really what it was. But, kind of launching, if you work with us, we're going to show you step by step, when do I contact each vendor? When is it appropriate to reach out to, your attorney of choice, your investment broker, or your insurance broker of choice, when's it time to get that soft quote? When's it time to start touring the property? It was really just a good segment of who's all in the group, who's all here, and really just kind of sharing some intros there.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Well, then it sounds like maybe I was the last intro. So great, I think Wes, that's a really important concept that you put together here, because as you all are learning, I'm sure very quickly, it does take a team, do these kind of things. It takes a village. There's not one person on a deal team that really knows the in-depth every single aspect of it. It's more like a sports team, you know what I mean? And if you guys are acting as sponsors, you're more in the coach's position, right? And so you're figuring out who your best receiver is for this, tight end for that, et cetera. And so Wes is right. It does take a team, and it takes understanding the timeline of when you need those members of your team to make it work. For me, I'll speak from the legal perspective. It's important that we're in at the right moment. Definitely. So if you call an attorney to get involved in your deal, and say, for example, you've already negotiated the purchase agreement or even just the letter of intent, you might have missed an opportunity there to have that lawyer weigh in, even at the letter of intent level, right? Because that's kind of your core, terms as you're going into a purchase of any asset. But then especially in the purchase negotiation process, right? You want an attorney there for that too. I can tell you from experience, having worked with hundreds of folks doing these types of deals, the deals that work best are the ones where as soon as you start thinking about signing paper, as soon as there's paper in front of you, like from somebody else, send it to your attorney. You know what I mean? Let them take a quick look, let them know. Otherwise, what tends to happen is we end up having to try to clean up and pick up the pieces of something that could have been solved way quicker, way easier, way more efficiently, and way cheaper had we been engaged earlier in the process. Now, again, I'm only speaking to the legal part. To Wes's point, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of different folks you want to engage at different times. Wes, did you have a comment?
I wanted to speak from that. That right there is so important. What you just said about as soon as there's paper in that contract, what's in your purchase and sell agreement matters. I have not lost a single dollar of EMD, even though every deal that I have signed to date has been hard money day one. And it's every bit of what Sean just said. So if you don't realize that that's a golden nugget right there, unless you have your own law degree or just some kind of magic wizard that understands that you need an attorney to look over and negotiate your PSA, because it's because of some of the little language and little, I'm going to sneak this default in, sneak in that. Right. And he just knew what to put in there so that, and we worked together through that contract. So he told me going into my agreement, under contract, here's your outs. So the first thing I did, knowing that, was get to my asset management team and say, we got to find one of these things. These are our outs of the EMD. If we find these, we at least have an out. So if the deal doesn't work, we're getting our money back. So just wanted to support that statement that you just said, that's not just a quick once over PSA, sign it. I've had a lot of people that have brought their deal to me to look over and ask me to help. And I have to tell them, hey, not only does your deal not work, but the way your PSA is structured, you are losing your EMD. And it's sad, but it's all because they try to negotiate just to save a little bit of money on a PSA, which really doesn't even make sense because, that's part of your syndication package, is it not, Sean?
Absolutely. Absolutely right. So if you want to come on with us and work through a deal, we're more efficient and cheaper if we're in on the whole deal. It comes as a package. So for example, again, thinking about timing, and this is just for the lawyer part, right? I get this question a lot from folks. Okay, so I'm supposed to have a lawyer in place or something so I can negotiate the PSA, but I'm also supposed to raise money. Like, how am I supposed to do both of those? Like, let me just focus on raising the money first, or let me just focus on, and both of those are wrong. Right? You can't do one or the other first. They actually work together really well. And the way that it works is, and this will just be a real quick example, you go take down the property, you put it under your inspection period. This is where, again, the lawyers are important, making sure your inspection period is long enough that you've got time and opportunities to extend, because during that time is when you're raising the money. Right. So they kind of work together. You get your initial momentum going, but then while you're under contract, you got the property locked up, but it's going to take some time to raise the rest of the money, to finish the fund documents, to do all your presentations, to get everybody's check in the door, blah, blah, blah. Right. So those processes run together so that you got the money raised during your inspection period before you have your earnest money goes hard. Right. At least all of it. Right. We try to save as much of it as we can. So that way, by the time you get to the end of your inspection period, you've raised your money and you've limited your risk. And say if you had to put up, $50,000, $100,000 in earnest money, well, now you've only got to pay them 25 instead of the whole 100. If the deal doesn't work for some reason, and if it does, we're all good. But if you do it without making sure that your inspection period is well negotiated between their attorneys and your attorneys, then what usually ends up happening is you run out of time. You know what I'm saying? I think I've got 3 deals right now, folks that brought me deals after, and that's what's happening to them. And the deals are quite frankly falling apart, right? And people are losing $70,000, $80,000, on deals that should have worked had they simply brought in, that help to understand what they were signing earlier. So that's probably my first piece of advice. And it's both as an attorney, but also as a deal guy. I also invest in multifamily and in storage and in hospitality, in various funds across the country. I'm from Chicago initially, so a lot of my stuff is in Chicago. We also do some stuff, obviously, here in Texas. So I speak to you all as a fellow syndicator, as well as an attorney, from the business side and from the legal side. It just makes sense, right? To bring in the attorney when you're really starting to think about a deal. Say you're drafting and negotiating an LOI. go ahead and call up the attorney. Hey, take a quick look, make sure there's no issues here in this LOI. And then they're involved, from that point forward. They're there to negotiate your PSA, make sure your closing goes well, make sure title issues are taken care of. I can't tell you how many times that happens. People will get through a deal and they're ready to close and they didn't look at title. And it turns out there's a railroad easement running through the middle. Right? Yeah. So these are kind of things. I think we have
if you don't mind me chiming in, I think on our last project we worked on, Wesley and I, as soon as we got our verbal agreement from the sellers that our offer was going to be accepted, we engaged Sean, and we said, we notified Sean and his staff, our offer is getting accepted. We're going to get the ball rolling on the PSA. From that point forward, we were able to have a well documented PSA and very thorough PSA that really helped us out going forward due to diligence.
And having gone through on the closings with Sean too, actually, I had a deal where Jamie was my insurance and Sean was the attorney, and we were actually brokering the loan. Century was actually brokering the loan, and talking about title down to the end. There was I think it was up to the day of. I finally just went and sat at title. Luckily, title was in Dallas. I just drove across town, sat in, because it was a lot of, oh, hey, the lender didn't say this. Oh, the lender forgot about this. And if it wasn't for those two gentlemen alone right there, I don't think we would have hit that closing date. Now, I think at that point, they would have given us that 1 or 2 day extension needed just for the paperwork. But because they were willing to go the extra mile and really be on knowing, had been through enough of these closings, had been through enough of the protocols, they knew exactly what to look for and were able to catch a lot of, I wouldn't say mistakes, but just afterthoughts of, oh, wait, we still need this. Oh, wait, they still need that. So having an experienced team is very important. Sean, I really appreciate you kind of going and giving that good overview of all the importance of when to engage you, why to engage you. I know we got just a few minutes left here. Is does anyone have any questions while we have Sean here? And he won't charge you for these questions right here. So we got a free hour. Look at that.
I was going to say, I'm not going anywhere. You guys got me for another 45 minutes because it was my fault. I was late. Like I want to offer that value. So by all means, I'd love to hear your questions. And of course, if anybody just wants like a basic overview of like deal structure for a fund in particular, got a slide for that. We can get to that. But most importantly, I want to answer the questions that you all have that are going to add the most value for you today.
I want to emphasize both your last points and plus Wesley's. Some of the key things that the buyers that you all sometimes miss, or just it's out of sight, out of mind, if you will, is you may have a $10 million loan and only use 7 of it for your purchase and going to use the other part for reconstruction, this, that, and the other. Your lender is going to demand that $10 million insurance limit. So if the insurance agent does not know what the lender wants coverage for, it's going to nail you at the end. And then the other part is property management. They require types of insurance as well. So if they are not forthcoming, you need to drag that out of them, because that stuff is what Wesley is talking about. We had to tack on towards the end. So that's just a tidbit there.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Jamie. There's a lot of places where just knowing when to bring the right team members in is everything to the deal. You know what I mean? And it's really not possible for even 1 or 2 people sitting at the top, especially during your first 3, 4, 5 deals, to see all of those things, So it's the best way to do it is to build the right team up from the beginning. On that note, Wes, were there any questions that were kind of prepared that we want to go through, or how do you want to tackle that?
Does anyone else have any questions before we just kind of run through the, entity structure? All right. I don't see. Okay. If you have any, just feel free to put it in the chat. Hey, I have a question, and we'll get to that. But Sean, I think you were going to go over, entity structure. I know you've got, a handful of different ways that you like to structure the what do you call it? The organization chart, so to speak, the organization of the entities for syndication. Yeah, I think that would be cool to get that visual on that and just kind of walk you through why we do this, because I know a lot of people are worried about, what's my risk, what's my liability, when do I need an LLC, how do I do all of that? Well, I know the first few times you do an entity structure or entity established, it's it can be kind of scary, but when you really get into it, you're like, oh, that's really not that bad.
It's
But
not, yeah, but it is at first. It's true. It's a lot to kind of take in at the beginning. So I want to start if we're just going to kind of talk high level, about the legal ramifications of fundraising, right? I want to start with a concept that I think is important for folks to kind of understand, which is why is there so much legal mumbo jumbo around raising money, right? You know what I mean? Because it seems like a lot, and I get that. But there's a reason. So essentially what it comes down to is this: the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, everybody knows what that is. Lots of movies about them. They have a vested interest down from Congress in making sure to protect consumers, right? They kind of work similarly to the, Consumer Protection Bureau. They're there to protect regular everyday folks like us from getting screwed over, essentially, by other folks, right? That's why when you go to the stock market, public markets, all that stuff is super regulated. Yeah, they get away with some wild things, but it's really regulated because before it gets to public, it's got to pass through a lot of things. Same thing on the private side. So for you guys, when you're raising money for folks, basically the government wants to know, both the federal government and the state government want to know that you got a good deal put together before you start taking money from people in their state, right? Or in the country, if it's federal, right? So that's really what the goal of all the paperwork around raising money is how do we protect individual investors, regular, hardworking, good folks who saved their money and worked hard from, getting swindled by, some, salesman on YouTube, right? So that's their goal. So how do they reach that goal? Well, they need to make sure that the company is set up to protect the investor. The companies are set up to protect that bottom line investor, and that the investor is fully aware of everything going on, right? There's nothing that could have gotten past them if they didn't just, pay attention to what they got. So that's kind of why there's so much paperwork involved. Now, the way it's set up, I'm going to show you guys. Wes, do I have a share screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share screen share.
Cool. Give me just a second. I'm going to pull it up. What I'm going to show you guys is basically an org chart that breaks down what a simple, common sort of common LLC syndication structure looks like. Sorry, I can't do technology and speak at the same time. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. So this is just really basic structure that you will normally see. And you'll see I use an LLC sample, right? So first, not all funds are set up under LLCs. There's different ways to do it. I won't get over technical and boring here. It doesn't really matter. For this, it's LLC is what we're going to use as the baseline. So this is what the structure looks like. If you look here on the left, this is your sponsor entity, right? This is you guys. This is the folks that are putting the deal together, the managers, the ones who are going down and taking down the property, the ones who are figuring out property management, working through the pro forma. This group, right? It sits in the sponsor entity, right? And as you can see, I just used 3, sponsor 1, 2, 3, because those will be the members, right? Everybody on your team. Everybody on your core team that's running the deal is going to funnel up into this entity. You guys are all going to co-own this entity, the sponsor entity, right? And then on the other side, in blue, you got the investor pool entity, right? So this is where all your investors go, right? And so I've only got 6 there. You probably will have 20, right? Or 15 or 40. Doesn't really matter. Point is, they will all invest in this one company together, right? And then these 2 companies, which again, your law firm is forming these companies and everybody's, investing. You guys are investing your time and money and energy into this one. Your investors are putting their money into the blue entity, right? And together, you guys are buying the green one, which is the asset, right? And that asset could be, an RV park or a skyscraper or an electrical supply business. Doesn't matter, right? So that kind of all works the same way. And then above that, you'll see the lender entity. And I kind of graded it out because it's not always there, right? But the idea is anytime you have a lender, they usually like to have another entity sit on top of these 2 entities so that they can own just one thing that isn't owned by lots of people. They want the entity that just owns the actual asset. If you have a lender, they're probably going to require one more entity up here, right? But these three are your basic structure. So when anybody is ever talking to you about a syndication, this is really all they're talking about. Now, it gets way more complicated, right? Like you might have a sponsor entity here, and then in addition, you might have another manager entity or an investment management entity. Sorry about that. Oh, here it is. Yeah, an investment management entity that might sit above it, or next to it, right? Like here. All right, this might be a place for an investment management. So it can get as complicated as you want it to. And it's based on the size of your deal and how complicated it is and all that. But for most deals, this is all you're looking at. Just two entities, one for your manager team, one for all your money, and then the third entity is just the one that holds the property or whatever the asset is. So hopefully that makes sense. Any questions about that? And I definitely want questions. No silly questions. There's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, just ask away. Like, it's your time. It's free. So, if anything here is like, I don't quite get this, like, let me know and let's talk it through.
All right.
Real quick. This is, it's not straight off the chart there. For LLCs in general, is it true that Texas waives the LLC fee for veterans?
It depends. If you've got actually, Wes can probably even answer that question better than me, but it's a little more complicated than that. But
yeah, it is a complicated process and it's very time consuming. So it's not the idea to do that for a syndication and when you're in the middle of purchasing something. It took me, I think, 6 weeks total. You've got to start by reaching out to the Texas Veterans Commission and getting what they basically call your certificate, your veteran certificate, and then you will have to do a paper filing for your new entity. So now that does come into handy whenever you're worrying about your franchise tax. They do waive your franchise tax. I can't remember if it's 3 years or 5 years. And then but I know that's just changed recently since 2021. So that would be more for like your holdings company. Now, this is specifically to a deal, and we can go, and Sean can go much further. We've had a recent meeting to bring in a good corporate accountant as well as Sean, and had a good discussion on how do you want to structure your entities for tax purposes beyond just your deal. And that's when we've got the filing for like the Texas owned company and all of that in my holdings company. So over there on the sponsor entity side, where it says sponsor one, a lot of sponsors and I recommend putting an entity together there. So as you do 3, 4, 5, 6, 29, 30 deals, you've got the same entity there representing all of that. And then that is under a C corporation. Now, we won't go that in depth on today on why a C corp over an S corp over a limited partnership or just an LLC. We can discuss that on another. For the basis of this right here, this is really for your deal specific, but Sean can help you even beyond that. I mean, he's helped me on all of my entity structure with that. Now, of course, that's just the separate fees there. However, where Sean's really going to be able to benefit us is setting up the entities, and more importantly, the PPMs, and really all the looking through to make sure you're within all the compliance, whether you're doing a 506B filing or a 506C filing.
Yeah.
That's where, we didn't bore you with all those legalese languages today, so you're welcome. But just know that's the real, this is the basic questions that we usually get asked. How do you structure your deals? And, why do you do it this way? What other options are there? But the real big is in the paperwork, like Sean was saying, what is that?
It really is. And so just to keep it simple, like really, from when you're thinking about the legal side of your deals, you got two basic things you need to take care of. First, the purchase of the asset, whatever it may be. Let me get off this stuff and share. First, the purchase of whatever your asset is, and then raising the money, right? Like, and those are kind of two separate tracks. On both sides, it's a really good idea to have legal help at the table, right? Because as we've kind of discussed, if there's an issue with your sale contract, it screws up your fundraise, right? You know what I mean? So they affect each other. If there's an issue with your fundraise, obviously your contract won't close. But they have to work together. So first, again, just for ease here, we're going to say a real estate asset comes into play. When you get to the point where you got an LOI, right, or you're starting to really talk terms with your seller, right, because you guys are in buyer position, I believe here, then that's a great time to reach out to an attorney that focuses on that area, right? So, I mean, we all know a couple of good family law attorneys, a couple of folks that may have, looked at a lease or two. I would not recommend that when you've got hundreds of thousands of your dollars and millions in value on the table, right? You want somebody who's in there. So if it's a real estate deal, find a real estate attorney to help you walk through that contract, make sure you're adequately protected. At the same time, you want to raise money. Well, if you want to raise money, then you got to set up that whole separate structure, right? That's a syndication. That's a fund. So you need lawyers that know how to set up funds. Typically, those aren't going to be the same lawyer unless they've, done those types of deals. So what works really well for a lot of syndicators in our firm is we have both here, right? We're kind of built around the kind of deals that you guys tend to do, right?
And he's growing his firm quite a bit. I know he's got some great. I know we're out of time here, but it's a lot of great stuff happening over there at TLC, and that's who I use for all my deals. I've bounced around and I've tried other attorneys, but I'll tell you right now, since I've found Sean, I have not really used another attorney because I haven't had to. So
I don't know why he's buttering me up like this. Yeah, you don't owe me any money. We're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to work on a credit. See, I'm working up a credit here.
Yeah. No, really, I sincerely appreciate that. And I feel the same. We've worked together very effectively. But I think, most importantly, I just want everybody out there to know, these can feel, like a kind of a, drinking through a fire hose, some of this stuff. And so, essentially, though, when it comes to the legal, you got get somebody to help me secure the asset that's a lawyer, and then get somebody to help me raise the money that's a lawyer. We've got lawyers for both, and we're here to answer your questions in the meantime, right? So again, as soon as you get to a point where you're really looking at a deal, hopefully with Wes or otherwise, and you've got a letter of intent in place, great time to call an attorney and let them start walking you through that process. I know we're technically out of time. I do have additional time if folks have more questions. Also, please do feel free to email us. I'm sure Wes will provide a place where we can, collect all those emails, and I'm happy to respond or have one of our attorneys respond to any other questions you guys may have. We just want to be here for you and support, as you.
When we post the recording inside the group and on LinkedIn, we'll make sure we put the contact information in there for Sean. So that way you can get a hold of his firm and we can get you connected as you're starting to dive into your deals. And then if you need just that setup call or just that you have to get set up and explain, hey, this is all the business that I've got going on. If you're already a businessman, already active, and just kind of saying, hey, I'd like to switch over. I need a new attorney. That's fine too there.
Yeah. And again, just even answering questions, you know what I mean? I want to see all of us do well.
Actually, we got one good question here. I like this one. I love this one. Do you help with litigation if the deal goes south?
Yeah. Yes. So that's the only litigation work we do, right? Is work that's kind of tied to our deals. So absolutely, and the funny thing is a lot of times deals go well and there's still a need for litigation help. Sometimes you may be working through a deal where your seller is really being a stickler on a point and you're wondering, hey, they're saying they're not going to give me my earnest money back. I need to know if I can sue these folks, right? Well, at that point, deal making is not so valuable, right? You want to know what can happen in court if you need to. So we have a 25-year experienced commercial litigator on our staff who is there to advise and help you think through how to keep moving forward without going to court, which is the best case scenario, right? And then if you do need to, there to represent you, kind of moving forward. But we try to construct the deals so that really where our value is to limit those opportunities. Typically, he only comes out when people bring us in too late. Just being honest about that, then they need him, but bring us in early, you probably won't need him. And if you do, he's there. Again, 25 years experience and he's a pit bull.
Mr. Chuck, right?
Chuck, man, I'm scared of the guy. I'll be honest. I'm glad he works for us.
And he is related to Chuck Norris, I believe, some way, right?
That's right. I heard that. No, he's not related to Chuck Norris, but
That's the litigator you
funny.
really need right there, right?
Right, right. But it's funny you mentioned that. As you guys, you'll see we're rolling out a new website. It'll be out in about 7 weeks or so, and you'll see one of our new partners is a guy by the name of Bill Mahomes. And so people always ask, I think that's where Wes was going there. They're like, so Bill Mahomes, like Mahomes, are they related? Yes, they are. This is uncle. What are the odds of that? So
So when you work with Sean, you get free tickets to the Kansas City Chief games. Is that what I heard, Sean?
this is recorded, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so no. But no, yeah. In all seriousness, this is something I'm very passionate about, both from the legal side and the business side, and so would love to find opportunities to help you guys move forward in your deals.
Yep. Thank you, Sean, for your time. I appreciate it. Is there any other questions? And if you think of one as soon as we hit end on this, feel free to put it in the group, and I'll work on connecting you with Sean and getting any of those questions answered in a quickly manner there. So.
Adam has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Adam, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey guys, I know I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, but I'm into land acquisitions and whatnot. So deal finding is kind of the thing that I do. Sean, thanks for coming on. Question that I have is a lot of the ways that I actually acquire land or deals is to creatively structure people in the deal themselves. So like if I were to approach a landowner or an asset group, that owns a particular property, I try and bring them onto the next deal. What are some of the nuances that can protect their particular stake in the deal? Like, how would you structure that, on a written contract?
When you say protect their stake, so you're referring to folks that you have, are you referring to your first deal or the second deal? It sounds like you're talking about bringing them on to further deals. You're saying in the first deal, how are they protected? Or
yeah, so it's more like okay, so you're a landowner, you have 10 acres of prime commercial property, something along those lines. And I approach you and I say, hey, I know that you may not exactly be willing to sell this, but you fit all of my criteria. You're out of state, it's a trust, it's whatever. So I find those kind of people and bringing them on. Like there's a lot that I don't know. So I would essentially approach Wes, and the Military Patriots Investment Group to do, the underwriting, the financing, all of that kind of stuff. How would I fit them into a particular deal to protect them legally and also ensure that the deal goes through?
Right. So this is a very big question, right? That's going to be kind of deal specific. And so the answer would be somewhat dependent on more details, but overall, big picture, if you're going to involve somebody in the deal that you're not buying the land outright from them, I take it. You're buying it 100%, but you want them to participate in the future, or are they continuing to own?
It would be kind of a partnership, I guess you could say. So they would have the land as collateral.
Okay. I think they would have the land as collateral on a loan.
No, essentially it would be like if they own the land outright, they would be coming into it and they get X percentage of whatever the deal is based on the value of that land. So
is your goal then to redevelop the land and then sell it?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, that's the glue. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's a joint venture partnership, right? So those are very common. Typically what you do, the way you would structure it is the land itself is where the value is, right? And this person is 100% landowner. You're coming in basically as a developer and you're saying, hey, I'm going to make this land much more valuable, but I want you to participate and be a part of it and, participate with me on the back end, right? When you're just working with two parties, right? In this situation, you don't need like a fund, all that fancy stuff, right? This is just two parties working together. Nobody's getting screwed over. There's no big sales pitch involved. It's just two people doing a deal. The securities folks don't care, like the fund people, they're not worried about that. So this is just the two of you, two private citizens putting a deal together. It's typically called, again, a joint venture agreement. And what you do is both of you, it's kind of similar actually to the fund structure in that each of you are going to come together and own the property, right? So you would say you're on the deed, today currently as the 100% owner. In our joint venture, what we're going to do is we're going to take that deed and we're going to transfer it from your ownership to a new entity that is owned by you, Adam, and your seller together, right? So maybe Adam, you own 80% of it, he owns 20%. Maybe it's 20-80, right? But in that way, they're in the deal from the beginning. You can't sell it without them. They can't sell it without you. You can't work on it without them. They can't work on it without you. You figured out what the profit split is ahead of time. You know what I mean? No matter what happens with the deal, if it makes $1, if it makes $1 million, you already know your seller's getting X%, right? 15, 20, 5, whatever. So yeah, that's a way that it protects everyone, because now you're tied into the value, which is really the property, and nobody can really make a move without the other one. That obviously inspires trust and instills trust, and also legally, even if you didn't trust them, they can't do anything. So that's probably, as a baseline, best way to protect a landowner that wants to participate in the deal long term.
Yeah, and the other piece to that, if we transfer everything underneath an entity where we both function together cohesively, how would they be? I guess you could say, what could we put into a contract that says, hey, this deal is not going to go forward for X amount of reasons, so it needs to revert back to your ownership solely?
Right. So all of that is mapped out in the joint venture agreement, right? So there's an operating agreement that goes with every company. You know what I'm saying? That's going to basically outline what that company does. So if y'all don't mind, I'll just show again real quick, because I think it might be worth it. Like looking at this here, right? Because this structure is not that different than the syndication structure, right? A joint venture structure can kind of work here. Here's the asset, and instead of sponsor and investor, you've got landowner and developer, right? And so each of these, though, has its own operating agreement or company agreement, the 20-pager that kind of outlines what the company does. Nobody reads it, right? That is where you talk about exactly those items, Adam, right? So you're going to say in that agreement, here's how we're governing this entity, right? So in this new entity you guys have created up here, Adam is the developer, and the landowner can't tell Adam, how much to pay for concrete, right? You know what I mean? He gets to decide that, right? Or which grading company to go with. That's all written down in the deal. But on the other hand, he's saying, I'm going to do all this work, but you're going to give me this percentage of the profits as in exchange for that. And I know that because I own the thing with you. We both own the asset up here. So I can say this is what I require and this is what you require. So it does come down to the operating agreement for the asset entity, very similarly to a fund. What does that operating agreement say about how the blue and the yellow are working together and what the terms are? So we would incorporate that. Absolutely. If we were working together on that, you'd say, hey, Sean, I need a JV with these two folks. Here's the deal terms. Boom, 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 right? And then I say, okay, we have a meeting, and then we put that into a robust operating agreement to tackle all of those issues, right? Our main goal is to keep you out of court, keep you away from disputes. So we handle it up front.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Very welcome. No problem.
All right. Thank you for that. I know that's something that's coming up more and more as you try to think outside the box, but as you can hear, you throw some ideas there that were as you're working projects. Sean's more than likely been there, done that. If not, he can think of something real quick for a structure to work. So JV, syndication, different structure or fund, whichever one it may be, definitely would recommend reaching out, setting up an interview, and starting to work with him. So, all right. Well, it's a good segment. I appreciate Sean. Thank you for coming on here and sharing some information for us, offering your services to our group here. I know yourself, you're not a veteran, but I would say you're definitely a strong patriot. And I really do appreciate all your support over the years of us working together. So I'm hoping that everyone else in the group can start to work with you as they do their deals, and we turn this into $1 billion group. Let's do that. $1 billion group, right? That's what we can put on there. #1 billion group there. So,
how do we get in touch with you, Sean?
I've already said that. Yeah, we'll put that out there whenever we post it. We'll get that on there. Sean, you're launching a new website as well as all your social media stuff too.
Yeah, it's gonna be quite a lot. We're doing a full rebrand, redesign. We've grown our team quite a lot over the course of the past couple of years. It was just me, guys, maybe 2 years ago, and now we've got 7 attorneys, a bunch of staff, and we're kind of rolling. And it was really built around folks like us, and I'm saying us. You know what I mean? Like, bootstrapped it, figured it out, built it from the ground up after doing my 8 years in big law. You know what I mean? And getting crushed under them for a while. So I want to bring that same thing to you guys. You know what I mean? That I know you guys have the the hard work, the focus, the determination, and I just feel like the legal piece can help be a part of what gets you over the hump there. So I'm truly here to support. Hope we can work together, but again, I'm happy to answer questions too. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just about finding out how we're going to work together in the future. If there's just things that are coming up, please consider us a resource. And again, Wes will provide good contact information so you can shoot questions and we can start to grow a relationship from there.
Now, what's your insurance look like?
Yeah, you got to talk to my team about that. You got to talk to the office manager, man. I have no idea. I hope it's really good. I'm pretty sure it's really good.
There we go. Yeah, so that's what we need to do. When some of the vendors in the group start working with each other, that's when you got a good ecosystem, right?
That's right. Let's talk about it.
There we go.
Sure. Let's talk about it.
All right. Well, hey everybody. Remember, first Friday of every month. We'll be back next month. Sarah, do you know who's going to be on next month already? We already got them locked in.
Let's see. I believe we've got Brandon coming up in April and March. I am trying to lock a couple people in. I've got 2 people that have given me tentative yeses. Jessica was one of them. And I've got another person that might be able to jump in if she can't. So once I get that speaker locked in, I will shoot out the announcement. And I appreciate everybody being patient with us as we learn the back ends of all of this Zooming stuff. We're going to attempt to make this live, where it's going to be posting it live on Facebook while we're having these meetings. But as always, I'll be dropping the recordings in the group for those members to be able to rewatch it that weren't able to show up, because there was a lot of value in what Sean had to offer today. So thank you again for joining us and giving us your time. We understand how busy attorneys are. So I really appreciate you carving out that time for us today.
It's honestly vice versa. Thank you guys for listening, and I look forward to coming back on another.
If anybody in the group is interested in being a speaker, shoot me a message. Find me on Facebook, find me on LinkedIn, or yates360s@gmail.com. You can shoot me a message, and I would like to speak with you, see what value you can bring to the table, what value we can bring to you, and let's make this an amazing group, guys. We're excited.
Sarah,
I mean, I am, at least.
Sarah, if you want to stay on at the end, I know someone that can help you with that Facebook and video stuff, unless you know how to do it, just not doing it yet. So
I'm in the, we have always operated under the fit in where you get in program, because we're bootstrapping as well. So I'm in that learning gauge. I've reached out to a couple people that have stated that they're going to be able to help me kind of navigate this new world. So I definitely appreciate that.
I'll introduce you to someone who can do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and end this recording. If you want to stay on, and then I'll let Wes wrap everything up. But again, thank you everybody for your time. We really appreciate you giving us this hour, and I apologize that we went over today, but again, Sean, thank you, and y'all have a good rest of your day.
Yep. No, that's all I've got. I appreciate it. And, feel free to add friends. Let's grow this group. This is not just my group. This is our group. So I want you to feel like it is yours. Add people that you feel would get value from it and that you feel could add value to it. So let's grow this group. Let's make it big. Let's rock and roll. So I'm excited to start doing some deals through this. And if you've got deals that you want to share to the group, feel free to do that. If you got services you want to share to the group, feel free to do that. And let's get rocking and rolling this year. Let's make 2023 a record-setting year for us. So with that, everyone enjoy your weekend. If you're in the DFW area, drive safe with all the crazy ice storm that's going on. And everyone else, just let me know if you need anything that I can help you with.
Thanks.